Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Accountability Board this morning on this bright, beautiful, sunny day. Thank you for all of you being here, and thank you to those who are joining us. So if I could go around the room and ask for introductions, I'll introduce myself first. I'm Sarah Dance, I'm Chair of Accountability Board.
I'm Helen Dyer, I'm Capital Programme Manager.
Rodney Chambers, Medway Council. And Brian, Chief Executive of the LEP.
Simon Cook, representing Further Education.
Leslie Wagland, Cabinet Member at Essex County Council for Economic Renewal, Infrastructure and Planning.
Deborah Arnold, Deputy Leader, Thurrock Council, standing in for Councillor Commission.
Roger Goff, Leader, Kent County Council.
Keith Glazier, Leader of East Sussex County Council.
Michael Newman, Essex County Council, standing in for the Section 151 as the accountability body.
Thank you. I believe we're expecting Councillor George and I think Rosemary to join us virtually in a minute, maybe. Okay, so just as a reminder, if board members wish to speak, if you could raise your hands and wave at me, that would be great. And when voting, if you can ensure that you do raise your hand so we can make sure that we count the votes properly. As you know, members of the public are able to join the meeting and officers are listening into the discussion. So a recording of the meeting will be available via the LEP website after the meeting has concluded. And for those attending the meeting virtually, please don't use the chat function on Zoom, as this won't be monitored during the meeting. There is a confidential item attached to item 15, but the intention is to discuss the item publicly unless anyone specifically wishes to discuss the contents of the appendix, in which case we will need to go into private session. If there are any technical issues for anyone attending virtually, please remain on the call and we'll resolve the issue as quickly as possible. So Helen, do we have any apologies?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Bentley, who's represented by Councillor Wagland, and from Councillor Cockrell, who's represented by Councillor Arnold.
Thank you. So let's go on to the minutes of the last meeting. Are you all happy with the minutes of the last meeting as a true record of the meeting?
Great.
Thank you. Now I'd like to ask for any declarations of interest, please, in accordance with the Members' Code of Conduct. Any? Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to hand over to Adam for some public questions.
Thank you, Chair. So we've received 3 public questions, and 2 of the public questions consist of more than one question. In accordance with the public question policy and in light of feedback received from a board member at the last meeting, we'll only be responding to one question from each person or organisation during this meeting. But just to provide reassurance, a written response to the remaining questions will be provided within 10 working days of the meeting, and all the responses will be published on our website. So as I have before, I will read through the entirety of the questions that we're going to answer. And read the answers as well. I'll be very clear on where the questions start and where the answers start. And I'll try and keep this within the 15 minutes allocated to public questions. So submission 1. On the 15th of March 2013, CELEP approved a £6 million Growing Places Fund loan to scheme promoter Sea Change Sussex for the Bexhill Business/Innovation Mall project. The project required the construction of the North East Bexhill Gateway Road to access the Bexhill Business Mall site. In the CELEP approved business case, Sea Change promised on page 52, quote, the £2.75 million cost associated with the construction of the Gateway Road will be funded through a combination of secured Sea Change Sussex internal funds, the secured East Sussex County Council capital contribution, and recently awarded Regional Growth Fund grant funding for strategic infrastructure. This promise is repeated again on page 80. By the 25th of June 2014, an East Sussex County Council committee report said on page 1, quote, it has become clear that the phasing of payments anticipated and relied upon by Sea Change Sussex, our delivery partner for the Bexhill Innovation Mall, mean that we would be making payments in advance of or forward funding expenditure. This exposes the County Council to some increased financial risk as until such time as the project is completed, the asset may not provide sufficient security. And on page 2, again, to quote, Sea Change Sussex maintains that failure to demonstrate when inviting its board of directors to accept tenders for building contracts that they hold up front all of the sums necessary to meet contractual financial obligations would result in a failure of the test of remaining a going concern. Sea Change have indicated that they are not prepared to enter into a contract unless they receive the funding in full, which would of course fundamentally jeopardise the delivery of the project. The East Sussex County Council lead member, Councillor Keith Glazier, approved unsecured at-risk East Sussex County Council loan funding to the value of £4 million to Sea Change in advance of expenditure for the Bexhill Innovation Mall to be paid back as Growing Places Fund funds are drawn down from Essex County Council quarterly in arrears. And 6 weeks later, on the 6th of August 2014, an East Sussex County Council committee report said on page 4, the County Council has previously provided Sea Change Sussex with an £800,000 loan for the construction of the NEBGR. It has since come to light that Sea Change Sussex do not have sufficient funding currently in place to complete the road works upon the NEBGR road leading to the Bexhill Innovation Mall. It is not possible to protect this loan by way of legal charge, as with the Bexhill Mall, as Sea Change Sussex does not yet own the road. There is therefore the risk that if Sea Change Sussex are unable to complete these works, the county's regional funding on this loan may be at risk. The question goes on. The East Sussex County Council lead member, Councillor Keith Glazier, approved an additional at-risk East Sussex County Council loan to the value of £2.6 million to Sea Change to construct the Northeast Bexhill Gateway Road, which have been using the acronym NEBGR for previously, and roundabout. On the 24th of November 2021, in Freedom of Information Request Response reference 101589113, East Sussex County Council lists in Table 2, Entry 6, the same at-risk £2.6 million loan to Sea Change for the Northeast Bexhill Gateway Road. The repayment of this loan is cross-referenced to Table 1, Entry 2, which says Local Growth Fund grant £18.6 million for the North Bexhill Access Road. 5th of February 2016, this included Entry 6, Table 2, NEBGR loan, and was recouped from the final funding award, £18.6 million. Therefore, with the apparent knowledge and participation of East Sussex County Council officials, Sea Change has A, failed to make the promised contribution from Sea Change internal funds to the Bexhill Business Mall project to fund the North East Bexhill Gateway Road. B, borrowed £2.6 million at risk from East Sussex County Council in August 2014 to construct the North East Bexhill Gateway Road. C, then in February 2016, repaid this £2.6 million loan to East Sussex County Council from the CELEP LGF public grant monies approved for a different project, the North Bexhill Access Road project. D, then returned to CELEP in February 18 to request £2 million worth of additional funding to complete the North Bexhill Access Road project on the pretext of unforeseen increased project costs. The North Bexhill Access Road project remains incomplete and Sea Change has fully spent all of the LGF grant monies. On the 4th of May 2022, the CELEP and Essex County Council FOI response ECC 1256-2104-0422 says, no approval decision has been made either by CELEP or Essex County Council to agree Sea Change would not deliver the North East Bexhill Gateway Road from the company's own internal funds as per the Bexhill Business Mall business case. A decision has not been made by the CELEP Accountability Board to enable the LGF allocated to the North Bexhill Access Road project to be used for the purpose of repayment to East Sussex County Council for an unsecured loan East Sussex County Council had made to Sea Change Sussex. No LGF has been awarded to support delivery of the Bexhill Business Mall project or the North East Bexhill Gateway Road. East Sussex County Council have confirmed in their reporting of spend of LGF on delivery of the North Bexhill Access Road project that spend equivalent to the full £18.6 million of LGF awarded has been applied by Sea Change Sussex in delivering the North Bexhill Access Road project. Will the CELEP Accountability Board please confirm? One, that CELEP will claw back this £2.6 million taken from the North Bexhill Access Road LGF public grant monies for other than the approved purpose and without any requisite LEP approvals. Two, what actions have been taken by CELEP and the accountable body since 4th May 2022, when their FOI response acknowledged that they were now aware of these serious irregularities in both LGF grant management and financial reporting by Sea Change and East Sussex County Council. So the response to question one is the Accountability Board did not make a decision to enable the local growth fund allocated to the North Bexhill Access Road project to be used for the purpose of repayment to East Sussex County Council for an unsecured loan made to Sea Change Sussex. However, East Sussex County Council have confirmed in their reporting of spend of the LGF on delivery of the North Bexhill Access Road project that spend equivalent to the full £18.6 million of LGF awarded has been applied by Sea Change Sussex in delivering the project. On this basis, CELEP will not be seeking to claw back any of the LGF funding awarded to the project. Now, question two. Following CELEP's response, combined questions 2 and 3 response and minute 7 in the summary of decisions of the Accountability Board on the 23rd of September 2022. So following CELEP's response then, the East Sussex County Council is responsible for the completion of this project. Sea Change Sussex has refreshed its earlier offer to East Sussex County Council to manage the last works connecting the Queensway Gateway Road with all costs in excess of the £10 million received from LGF to date to be met by East Sussex County Council. Sea Change Sussex would ask CELEP what measures it can take to ensure that East Sussex County Council funds this project to completion in line with their service level agreement. This project is substantially complete along its length of over 500 metres, with only junction improvements at its A21, including associated curbing, adjacent 3-metre road widening on the west side of the A21, traffic lights installed and a cycleway to be completed. Sea Change Sussex believes that this project can be completed within the £15 million budget that was approved by CELEP and its independent technical advisor on the 20th of March 2016. The response: all upper tier local authorities within the CELEP area have committed to complying with the requirements of the CELEP assurance framework. In addition, there are service level agreements in place between each upper tier local authority, South East LEP Limited and Essex County Council as accountable body for CELEP. The service level agreement in place between East Sussex County Council, South East LEP Limited and Essex County Council as the accountable body for CELEP places the following responsibilities on the council. 1, responsibility for ensuring delivery of the LGF project and the outputs and outcomes agreed in the respective business cases. And 2, responsibility for all costs in excess of the LGF allocation, for example, overspends arising from the implementation of the projects. So moving on to question 3. Consistently, members of both the CELEP Secretariat and this Accountability Board have stressed the importance of transparency in the execution of the affairs of CELEP. Indeed, in recent times, some difficult public questions have been unflinchingly addressed at Accountability Board meetings. It is of concern to this questioner that trust placed in the acceptance of the answers provided can then be undermined by subsequent events. The policy for public questions to the CELEP Accountability Board includes a section on the scope of questions, among which it states that the question must be about a matter for which the accountable body has powers or duties, and the question may be rejected if it is substantially the same as a question put to a meeting in the previous 6 months. Over the past 12 months, several separate questions have been put on aspects of projects awarding funding by CELEP, with the upper tier authority being East Sussex County Council and Sea Change Sussex being the scheme promoter. Following on from these questions, the reporting of project progress reporting has been amended so that a project is no longer recorded as being complete simply because the awarded funding has been spent. Perhaps unsurprisingly, projects are now only recorded as complete when they have actually completed what they were awarded funding for in the business case. Following this clarification, 2 of the East Sussex County Council / Sea Change Sussex projects were reclassified as construction in progress or project in progress. Yet with all this reclassification clarification, the North Bexhill Enterprise Park was recorded as LGF project delivered this summer, only to have the classification amended to project in progress by the accountable body's section 151 officer this month. This suggests a continuing breakdown in the substance of reporting by the upper tier local authority. The significance of this is reflected in the question. In response to the previous questions, the board has stated that for all projects funded, a service level agreement is in place between Essex County Council as accountable body for SELEP, South East LEP Limited, and the relevant upper tier authority within the LEP area, and is a legal document and includes, in these specific cases, the following obligations. The East Sussex County Council accepts responsibility for ensuring delivery of the projects and the outputs and outcomes agreed in the approved project business case. The project allocation, i.e. LGF funding award, is a capped contribution per project. The council is responsible for all additional costs, for example, overspends arising from the implementation of the project. East Sussex County Council is required to have a back-to-back service level agreement with the scheme promoter or contractor, which mirrors the contract terms of the SLA between East Sussex County Council and SELEP and the accountable body. The Queensway Gateway Road project is still in an indisputably incomplete state. At the last accountability board meeting, Sea Change Sussex made statements and asked questions which clearly disputed the contents of reports made by East Sussex County Council dating back to 2015. Since the September accountability board meeting, Sea Change Sussex have embarked on a press campaign repeating and amplifying these statements. I refer specifically to a front page running over 3 pages article in Hastings Independent Press, and in particular to this quote made by Sea Change Sussex. Quote, "On the matter of funding, our grant agreement requires us to complete the funded works, which we have done. There's no obligation on us to deliver further elements of the project unless we enter into an additional agreement to do so with further funding to cover that." Close quote. This statement is incompatible with the responses previously given to me by the SELEP Accountability Board and does not reflect what I've been told is in the SLA between East Sussex County Council and Sea Change Sussex. In response, East Sussex County Council issue their now standard response that they are working hard to get the road completed and open. Question: in view of the potential reputational damage to SELEP by the Sea Change Sussex claims, and bearing in mind East Sussex County Council is a member and shareholder in Sea Change Sussex, can the SELEP Accountability Board confirm without caveat that A, East Sussex County Council has accurately reported to the Accountability Board the true position on this project from inception, including all budget reduction and cost reduction savings and increments / engineering design changes and the contents of the signed SLA. B, the board does not concur with the allegations made in the press statements issued by Sea Change Sussex. C, the SELEP Accountability Board is satisfied East Sussex County Council does have a back-to-back service level agreement in place with Sea Change Sussex, with mirrored contract terms of the SLA between SELEP Accountable Body and East Sussex County Council, which includes provisions for funding all overruns. D, as neither East Sussex County Council nor Sea Change Sussex consider their signal connection requires a project change case to be presented to the Accountability Board, will the board confirm the existing terms of the SLAs between all parties still apply in its entirety? E, by the next Accountability Board, revised completion dates will be provided without fail for the project in North Bexhill Access Road and Bexhill Enterprise Park, East Sussex Strategic Growth Projects, Queensway Gateway Road and Bexhill Enterprise Park North. Given that this is a question with 5 sub-questions, we are answering part C of this question, and we'll answer the other, so A, B, D and E subsequently as already indicated. So just to repeat part C, the question was: the SELEP Accountability Board is satisfied that East Sussex County Council does have a back-to-back service level agreement in place with Sea Change Sussex, with mirrored contract terms of the SLA between SELEP and SELEP Accountability Board, Accountable Body and East Sussex County Council, which includes provisions for funding all overruns. And the answer to that question is East Sussex County Council have confirmed that they have a grant agreement with Sea Change Sussex, which provides back-to-back obligations which require Sea Change Sussex to deliver the road in accordance with the business case. East Sussex County Council have respectfully requested that any questions relating to the relationship between themselves and Sea Change Sussex would be a matter for the parties involved to consider. And that concludes the public questions and answers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Adam. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Simon?
Just a couple of questions. The questions that are coming through don't sound like questions to me, they sound like statements, and they are very lengthy and very complicated. And I, for one, find it must be quite difficult for us and for officers to be able to clearly answer those questions. So I think we need to be very clear about our public question policy and the nature of those questions. I know that's down to your discretion as chair, but seems to be a very repetitive nature to the complaints. They sound more like complaints than they do questions to me. That's just my own opinion. It would be wrong of me not to say that.
Thank you, Simon. Obviously, I'm guided by officers' recommendations on how we deal with this, but absolutely we will take that on board and look at that in the future. I mean, I think it should be said that, you know, we are getting a lot of correspondence about this at the moment, and absolutely it's right that we, you know, take things seriously. We are, as the government is undertaking a deep dive at the moment, as is known publicly, about some of these areas, and I am very keen that this deep dive comes to conclusion very soon, so that we can all move on and ensure that we deal with any issues and get on with the business of delivering that in the way that we need to deliver. So thank you, Simon. Thank you, Adam. And,
Just to confirm what you've said, East Sussex clearly have a job to deliver projects that have been approved by this board and by Select, and that is the aim of East Sussex County Council, and officers work consistently to try and achieve that.
thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Let's and just confirm that any questions and the answers will all be published on the website for everybody to read. Okay, let's move on now. Thank you to item 5, which is getting building fund capital programme update. So I'm going to hand over to Helen on this. Thank you.
Thank you. So this report and the associated addendum.
Thank you, Councillor George. Would you like to? Thank you.
Okay. Yes, this report and the associated addendum provides the usual update on the GBF programme, including an update on those projects which have received approval for retention of GBF funding beyond March 2022, an update on the GBF spend position and on the high risk projects. As the board are aware, there is a clear expectation from central government that GBF funding should be spent in full by the 31st of March 2023. We are currently forecasting GBF spend in 22-23 of 21.2 million, but to the end of Q2, only 6.2 million of this funding has been spent, leaving £15 million to be spent during Q3 and Q4. As reported at previous meetings, a number of the projects have experienced delays and complications which have impacted on their delivery programme. Assurances are regularly sought regarding the ability of the ongoing projects to complete their GBF spend by the 31st of March, but it's important that the implications of failing to meet this timeline are understood. Failure to meet government expectations would represent a significant reputational risk for both Select and the upper tier local authorities responsible for project delivery, and may adversely impact on any funding applications submitted directly to government by impacted local partners for future funding streams. And just to quickly touch on high-risk projects, 3 high-risk projects are identified. Better Queensway and the Tom Modular Housing Factory project will be considered under separate agenda items, but I just wanted to quickly pick up on the Techport project. As set out in the addendum, a request to retain the GBF funding allocation against the project beyond December 2022, which is the current date agreed by the board, has been submitted. This request has been made due to the need for more extensive route and revetment wall work to ensure the quality of the project is maintained, and due to the process for discharging conditions attached to the plan and scheduled monument consent. It's taking longer than expected. The consents have now been discharged, a contractor has been appointed and work has commenced on site. It is expected that work will complete in early March 2023. It has also been confirmed that the project meets the requirements agreed by the board for all projects retaining their GBF funding allocations beyond the 31st of March 2022. And therefore, the board asked to consider whether the GBF funding can be retained against the project until March 2023. I think I'm going to stop there. So,
Okay, thank you. Do I have any questions or comments?
If I may only comment that I think as Helen has set out in relation to Tech Fort, you know, a lot of progress has now been made, and it seems logical to follow through on the recommendation.
Thank you. So we are asked to note the current reported spend across the GBF programme for the 2022-23 financial year of 21.213 million as set out in table 1. We're asked whether we agree the reported GBF spend on the project delivery in Q1 and Q2 of 2022-23 of 6.197 million as set out in table 1 and appendix A. Is that agreed? Note deliverability and risk assessment as set out in appendix C. And then we're asked, we've got 2 options for Tech Fort. So the option 1 is agree that the project meets the requirements previously agreed by the board for all projects retaining their respective GBF funding allocations beyond the 31st of March 2022. Do you agree that? Agree. And agree that the GBF funding allocation can be retained against the project for a further maximum period of 3 months, subject to strategic board endorsement in December 2022. Agreed.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on now to item 6, which is a report to consider the award of getting building funding to 2 projects in accordance with the GBF project pipeline. Howard.
Thank you, Chair. So this report considers the award of GBF funding for 2 of the projects which prioritise the receipt of funding by the Strategic Board. The projects detailed in this report have already received approval from the board for retention of their GBF funding to the 31st of March 2023, and therefore these are straightforward funding decisions. The first project under consideration is the extension of full fibre broadband rollout in Essex to reach rural and hard to reach premises project, which is seeking additional GBF investment of £359,074. The additional GBF is being sought as a result of increasing costs associated with the delivery of full fibre broadband to 29 rural businesses and 185 rural residences, which were included in the original project scope. The additional GBF funding will allow these properties to be connected to broadband and will ensure that delivery of the business case is achieved in full. Delivery of the project is progressing and is expected to complete in January 2023. The second project detailed in the report is the Jaywick Market and Commercial Space project, which is seeking additional GBF investment of £300,879. The additional GBF funding is being sought to help mitigate cost increases associated with the discovery of asbestos and ground obstructions in the early stages of construction. The risk of discovery of further asbestos and ground obstructions have now been mitigated, and it is expected that some of the additional GBF funding will be used to return certain elements to the project scope following their removal as a result of increasing costs. The additional GBF funding will allow the project to deliver in accordance with the scope set out in the original business case. Construction is progressing on site, and it's expected that the projects will complete in March 2023. We have now received confirmation from government that the change requests covering the award of additional GBF funding to the projects detailed in this report have been approved, and therefore this requirement will be removed from the recommendations. Section 151 offers a sign-off in relation to the application for additional funding for both projects in this report has not yet been received, and therefore award of funding to these projects will be subject to timely receipt of this sign-off. If this sign-off is not received, the funding will be reallocated to alternative projects at the next board meeting.
Thank you. Okay, so we have as a slight change to the paper. So because we have had a government approval of the increase into GBF, but for both projects we haven't yet had receipt of section 151 officer sign off. So as I believe she's ill at the moment, but so we will. So I'm changing the wording slightly. So I'm asking you whether you agree the award of the additional £359,074 GBF to Essex County Council for the extension of the full fibre broadband rollout in Essex to reach rural and hard to reach premises project, subject to receipt of section 151 officer sign off from Essex County Council. Do you agree?
Agree.
And agree the award of the additional £300,879 GBF to Essex County Council for the Jaywick Market and Commercial Space Project, subject to receipt of section 151 officer sign off from Essex County Council.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Let's move on swiftly to item 7, Helen, which is GBF funding to 6 projects.
Yes, so thank you. So following on from the previous item, this report considers the award of GBF funding to the other 6 projects which were prioritised for receipt of funding by the Strategic Board. All projects detailed in this report require approval from the board for retention of their GBF funding to the 31st of March 2023. The first project is Innovation Park Medway Sustainable City of Business, which is seeking additional GBF investment of £400,000. This funding is being sought as a result of increasing materials costs associated with the provision of COVID-safe working practices and supply chain issues. This additional funding will allow the project to be delivered in accordance with the approved business case. Delivery of the project is progressing on site and the GBF funded works will be completed by March 2023. The second project is Thanet Parkway Railway Station, which is seeking additional GBF investment of £875,000. The primary reason for seeking additional GBF funding is to help mitigate cost increases associated with the required level crossing and signalling works. These works must be completed before the station can open to the public. Provision of additional GBF funding will safeguard the delivery of the level crossing and signalling works in accordance with the agreed programme, ensuring that the station remains on track to enter operation in May 2023. The third project is Javelin Way Development, which is seeking additional GBF investment, £235,728. This funding is being sought as a result of increased costs associated with ensuring a safe working environment during the pandemic, increasing materials costs and supply chain issues, which have resulted in an extended delivery programme. Award of additional GBF funding will allow consideration to be given to the reinstatement of items removed from the project scope due to increasing costs. The project is nearing completion with the official opening of the Jasmine Bartman building at the site, scheduled to take place on the 7th of December. The fourth project is Tyndall Square, Chelmsford, which is seeking additional GBF investment of £339,819. This funding is being sought due to increasing inflation rates, supply chain issues which have resulted in an extended delivery programme, and costs associated with ensuring a safe working environment during the pandemic. This additional funding will allow the project to be delivered in accordance with the approved business case, and delivery of the project is progressing on site and is expected to complete in early 2023. Again, as with the other Essex projects, section 151 officer sign off in relation to the application for additional funding for the Tyndall Square project has not yet been received, and therefore award of funding to this project will be subject to timely receipt of this sign off. And if the sign off is not received, the funding will be reallocated to return to the project at the next board meeting. The fifth project under consideration is the Observer Building in Hastings, which is seeking additional GBF investment of £315,000. This funding has been sought as a result of significant cost increases encountered during the procurement process. Value engineering has been carried out, and additional fundraising undertaken, but there remains a shortfall in funding. The additional GBF funding will help support delivery of the remaining works. Work is progressing on site and it's expected that GBF funded elements of the project will be completed in March 2023. All 5 of these projects meet the requirements agreed by the board for projects which are seeking retention of their GBF funding allocations beyond March 2022. The final project under consideration at this meeting is the Association of South Essex Local Authorities, LFFM, Phase 3 project, which is seeking GBF investment of £500,000. Phase 2 of the project currently sits within the GBF programme, and additional GBF funding has been sought to bring forward a further phase of the project. Phase 3 will allow the extension of full fibre infrastructure across the South Essex region, allowing work in some key spots which have not yet benefited from investment to enable the realisation of additional benefits. The project is sought to apply value for money exemption 2 as set out in the insurance framework, and the ITE has concluded that the project offers high value for money with a medium certainty of achieving this. The LFFN project does not fully meet the requirements agreed by the board for projects which are seeking retention of their GBF funding allocations beyond March 2022, as contractual commitments for delivery are not yet in place. A contract cannot be put in place until the award of GBF funding has been confirmed, but the delivery organisation has indicated that they have a benchmarking procurement process in place, which will ensure that contractual commitments are in place during December, allowing delivery of the project to complete in March. As indicated under the previous item, we have now received confirmation of approval from government on the change requests, and therefore this will be removed from the recommendations. And obviously, in light of government expectations in relation to completing GBF spend by the 31st of March, delivery of these projects will be closely monitored, and any risks will be flagged to the board at the earliest opportunity.
Thank you, Helen. Any comments or queries from the board? Nope. Okay, so we're asked whether you agree the award of the additional 400,000 GBF to Medway Council for the Innovation Park Medway Sustainable City of Business project, and agree that the GBF funding can be retained against the project beyond March 2022 for a maximum period of 12 months to the 31st of March 2023. Do you agree?
Agree.
Agree the award of additional 875,000 GBF to Kent County Council for Thanet Parkway Railway Station project, and agree that the GBF funding can be retained against the project beyond March 2022 for a maximum period of 12 months to the 31st of March 2023.
Agree.
Agree the award of additional 235,728 GBF to Kent County Council for the Javelin Way development project, and agree that the GBF funding can be retained against the project beyond March 2022 for a maximum period of 12 months to the 31st of March 2023.
Agreed.
Agree the award of additional £331,819 GBF to Essex County Council for Tyndall Square Chelmsford project, subject to the receipt of Section 151 officer sign-off from Essex County Council, and agree that the GBF funding can be retained against the project beyond March 2022 for a maximum period of 12 months to the 31st of March 2023.
Agreed.
Thank you. Agree the award of additional 315,000 GBF to East Sussex County Council for the Observer Building Hastings project, and agree that the GBF funding can be retained against the project beyond March 2022 for a maximum period of 12 months to 31st of March 2023. Agree the award of 500,000 GBF to Thurrock Council for the Assaila LFFN Phase 3 project, which has been assessed as offering high value for money with a medium certainty of achieving this, and agree that the GBF funding can be retained against the project beyond March 2022 for a maximum period of 12 months to 31st of March 2023. Okay, thank you. Right, Better Queensway project, GBF project update. I'm going to hand over.
Chair, before you hand over, I have to declare a non-pecuniary interest in that my brother-in-law serves on the board of Sanctuary.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, you weren't here at the beginning of the meeting for the declaration of interest, so thank you for saying that now. I'm going to hand over now to Catherine Cummings, who from Southend Council, City Council, and then I'm going to hand over to Helen. So Catherine, please.
Hello. I'm just going to cover some of the points on the report that we've written jointly. The first thing is on project delivery. Obviously, significant progress has been made so far on the project in terms of the outline planning for around 1,700 homes, and also detailed for the main highways works, which are the first step of the project. More recently, that element of the works has been successfully tendered, and we're now at preferred bidder stage. There's also a reserve matters application for the first phase of the residential outputs. So significant progress has been made already on the project. Obviously, it's of interest to members of the board, in the background, the merger, the progress on the merger between Swan and now Sanctuary Housing Association. And the council has been informed by Sanctuary that they will merge on the 30th of November. They have requested change of control consent from the council, which was given on the 8th of November. So we're assured that's going to go ahead. Sanctuary have met senior officers and have walked the site and are positive about the project. Once the merger happens on the 1st of December, it's intended, obviously, that they will undertake some of their own fresh due diligence, but that this will be finished by the spring so that a fresh business plan can be presented to the council. I think in terms of security of outputs, another thing that I know Helen wanted me to comment on was the fact that as a 50-50 JV partner, should anything happen to go wrong with the merger proposals, the council has under its legal suite several routes to ensure that the outputs can still be delivered.
Thank you, Catherine. Helen.
Thank you. So from a seller perspective, this project has obviously been flagged as high risk due to the involvement of Swan Housing and the ongoing uncertainty regarding their future until the merger is completed. However, as explained by Catherine and as set out in the report, there are a number of alternative options available to Southend on Sea City Council should Swan Housing not be able to fulfil their obligations as joint venture partner. In addition, Southend on Sea City Council have indicated a strong commitment to ensuring that the project progresses. Should Swan Housing not be able to proceed with the project, our main concern will be to understand the impact that an alternative delivery approach will have on the construction programme. In addition, it's important to understand the quantum of benefits that can be realised by the 31st of March 2025, which is the end of the period for which there is an expectation of regular reporting to government on benefits realised. If the quantum of benefits forecast in this period changes significantly, then change requests will need to be presented to government. And finally, the board agreed that the GBF funding could be released to Southend on Sea City Council prior to the 31st of March 2022, subject to receipt of confirmation from the council that the project would proceed as planned following the regulator of social housing's decision to downgrade Swan Housing's viability and governance grades and Swan Housing's planned partnership with Orbit. This assurance was provided at the last meeting, but in light of the partnership with Orbit not progressing, further assurances are needed once the outcome of the merger discussions between Swan Housing and Sanctuary Housing Association have concluded and the route for delivering the project has been confirmed.
Thank you, Helen. Any comments or queries from the board? It's obviously an ever-changing situation at the moment. Hopefully it'll come to conclusion soon. So we're asked as a board to note the update on the delivery of the project, and thank you, Catherine, for coming to speak to it. And we're asked whether we agree that a further update of the project, which confirms the status of the merger between Swan Housing and Sanctuary Housing Association, and provide an update on project delivery and assurances regarding the ongoing delivery of the wider project, should be provided at the March 2023 board meeting. Are you happy with that? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, item 9, Swan Modular Housing Factory. I believe I'm going to hand over to Paul Chapman from Essex County Council on this one, please. Welcome, Paul. Hello.
Sorting the technology. There we go. Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. So again, this is an update report, and again, in following on from what's just been reported from Southend as well. So the Swan Modular Housing Factory is currently 2/3 spent and probably around 3/4 delivered. It has had previous delivery extensions agreed by the board to compensate for supply chain issues that they've faced, and they've used that additional time to diversify the fit out of the factory to provide additional options for them with the build. However, with the ongoing talks of merger, we've heard about the Orbit one and now with Sanctuary, which does sound much more promising. Essex County Council have held off on any claims or payments while those talks are going on until we've got clarification of the role of the factory and Sanctuary and Swan's plans going forward. If those things are positive, then we've been given assurance that delivery and spend would remain on track and will be completed. The spend will be completed by March 23. If not, in your paper, Essex County Council have developed a number of scenarios which we would then explore. And until we know the result of the conversation on the 30th, we're not really clear which ones we'll be following, but there's a whole load of options from best to worst case that we would follow through.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Helen?
Thank you. So obviously, as with the Better Queensway project, this project has been flagged as high risk due to the involvement of Swan Housing. As set out in the report, the future of the project remains unclear regardless of the outcome of the merger discussions between Swan Housing and Sanctuary Housing Association. Based on information reported in the housing press, there is a significant risk to project delivery should the merger not complete next week. Even if the merger completes, Essex County Council have been unable to obtain any information which provides any clarity as to the future status of the factory. Essex County Council have identified a number of scenarios, as mentioned by Paul, which might arise, and actions that they will need to take in each case. But they're unable to take any action until the outcome of the merger discussions is known. Should a situation arise where the project cannot be delivered in accordance with the business case, the board will be asked to agree the removal of the project from the GBF programme and the return of the funding. Given the timing of the proposed merger with Sanctuary Housing Association, there are limited options available to the board at this meeting. As there continue to be scenarios under which the project is completed, the GBF funding spent by the 31st of March 2023, and the factory is used to deliver the benefits outlined in the business case, there is currently no basis to remove the funding from the project. Whilst technically decisions could be made to provisionally reallocate the funding subject to further clarification of the status of the project, this would not benefit the other projects, as the funding will continue to be held against this one modular housing factory project until it is confirmed that the project cannot proceed. Essex County Council potentially have a number of complex discussions ahead, and therefore it is possible that the future of the project will not be confirmed in the short term, meaning that there is little benefit in provisionally reallocating the funding at this stage. And obviously there is a requirement for a further update on the status of the project to be provided at the next meeting.
Thank you, Helen. Any comments or queries from the board? No. Okay, so thank you very much, Paul. We'd like to note the update on the delivery of the project, and I ask that you agree a further update on the project which confirms the status of the merger between Swan Housing and Sanctuary Housing Association, provides an update on project delivery, and provides assurances regarding the ongoing realisation of the project. Benefits should be provided at the March 2023 meeting. Do you agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, so item 10, Helen, Local Growth Fund Capital Programme update.
Yes, so this report provides the usual update on the Local Growth Fund programme, including updated risk assessment for all projects. As the board are aware, the LGF programme officially ended on the 31st of March 2021, but there remain a number of ongoing projects. As set out in the report, forecast LGF spend to the end of Q2 22-23 was 13.7 million, including DfT retained schemes. Actual spend reported during this period totals only 7.9 million. This represents further slippage on the LGF programme and is predominantly as a result of delays on a small number of projects. Whilst all ongoing projects continue to be closely monitored and updates on those considered to be high risk are provided regularly to the board, the unspent LGF funding continues to represent a reputational risk for both Select and the responsible upper tier local authorities. One specific point I've been asked to raise, the report provides an update on the North Bexhill Access Road project. Subsequent to publication of the agenda pack, a further update on the project has been provided as follows. The remaining works, principally landscaping works, were delayed by the lengthy time it took to receive a dormouse licence for works from Natural England, and this precluded the commencement of the landscaping last autumn. Sea Change Sussex has used the time productively to secure the most appropriate contractor for these works, and are pleased to advise that this contract has been signed by the contractor, who is currently undertaking pre-start off-site work. And finally, I just wanted to touch upon Appendix G, which lists projects for which there is outstanding post-scheme completion monitoring and evaluation reports. Whilst it is appreciated that local partners have experienced resourcing issues in relation to these reports, provision of the post-scheme completion monitoring and evaluation is essential, so that we can understand exactly what has been achieved as a result of the LGF programme. It also provides the opportunity to learn from the experience of delivering the LGF projects and to use this information to inform delivery of alternative funding streams moving forward. If the monitoring and evaluation is not completed, this impacts on our ability to fully report the benefits realised through the LGF programme to both this board and central government. As the GBF programme draws to a conclusion, there will be a greater focus within the Select Capital programme team on ensuring that the outstanding LGF monitoring and evaluation reports are completed and the list of outstanding reports is reduced, and support will be provided by the team where possible.
Thank you, Helen. I'd just like to add my own emphasis on that as well, on Appendix G. I absolutely understand the pressure that all the local authority officers are under at the moment, and are empathetic with that. But as Helen says, if we don't get outstanding, reports in, then we can't report to this board. So please, can I ask that we liaise very carefully on that over the next while, and hopefully at the next board meeting we'll have not so many outstanding notes on that appendix. Okay, are there any other queries or comments from the board? Okay, so we asked whether we agree the updated total planned LGF spend on project delivery in 2022-23 of 17.312 million, excluding DFT retained schemes, and increasing to 17.636 million, including DFT retained schemes, as set out in Table 2 and Appendix A of the report. Do you agree? Agree the reported LGF spent on project delivery in Q1 and Q2 of 2022-23 of 7.920 million, as set out in Table 1 and Appendix A.
Agreed.
Note the deliverability and risk assessment as set out in Appendix D, and note the list of outstanding post-scheme completion monitoring and evaluation reports as set out in Appendix G. Thank you. Okay, let's move on now to item 11, which is a report on the London Gateway Stamford La Hope Local Growth Fund project. I'm going to hand over to Keith. Kevin. Now.
It is going to be Keith. So I'm going to lead this one. Morning, everyone. This is an update report on Stamford La Hope on the 2 phases. Phase 1 is the upgrade to the new station. Now, after a competitive tender process which started last September, in March this year, we chose a successful contractor. We've been engaged with them all this time. The contract terms are of a nature where the contractor bears largely the risk of delivery on the contract. It was deemed a fixed price contract under NEC terms, new engineering contract. In the current environment, that's proving very difficult to execute the contract. Soaring inflation concerns, liabilities over risk of possession availability in the rail environment. Also, the nature of our arrangement with the council, Network Rail and C2C being seen as clients and therefore approvers of design. All these issues also aligned with procurement timescales and manufactured goods cost inflation have all led to significant negotiations over an extended period of time. The contractor proposed many alternatives, most of which Thurrock have not been able to accept because it would put us in breach of procurement regulations. In September, only I think just about the time of the last board, I was quite confident that we'd found a way forward on negotiating our way through all this. However, the fine detail of agreeing inflation, the treatment of inflation, possession availability has not been successful. So currently the council are considering its options, and we're looking at alternative procurement methods and delivery strategies to recover what is now a 7-month delay. On the positive side, we've had very good engagement with our train operator, who are obviously very keen, huge stakeholder, very keen to see this delivered in a timely fashion. We have a lot of commitment from them that they will make railway possessions available to meet and recover some of the time lost already, which is very encouraging. There are large amounts of engineering works planned for next year, which we can make use of and work alongside. But at the moment, unfortunately, this puts us in a difficult position, obviously, without executing a contract. We're uncertain about our costs. One thing we do know is that the tender cost submitted is now probably what we regard as our minimum likely cost, and so the impacts of inflation need to be considered and put into the budget. So that's kind of where we are in phase one. On phase two, this has been equally set back by really the project team devoting their time over the last 7 months to the negotiations. Although under previous assumptions, we thought we had around a year of design development time to continue with the phase two. A lot of design has been done in the past. We have 7 options. We think that at the moment we're undertaking work with all the stakeholders to challenge and to reconsider the requirements that are needed out for the transport hub. And that work has been going on for a little while now and will continue. But we find ourselves at a situation where it's very difficult to, well, have no certainty at the moment over schedule or costs for the 2 phases. So really what I'd like to flag up is that by March of next year, we will have hopefully new strategies, new plans in place, commitment on costs and schedule that we can deliver to this next meeting. And we would like to highlight that we may well be looking at asking for an extension on the timeline for the updated business case, because clearly without the development work on phase 2 and without cost certainty on phase 1, it'll be very difficult to put forward and update your business case, which could be robust. So I just really wanted to highlight that point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Keith. So, I mean, to replicate a little bit of what Keith has taken us through there, but from a set point of view, set out in the report, it has still not been possible for Thurrock Council to enter into the construction contract. Keith set that out there for phase 1 of the project. The ongoing delays in finalising the contract are impacting on the delivery programme for both phases of the project. Again, Keith mentioned that. No delivery programme for either phase of the project had been provided in this report for those reasons. As the board are aware, there is an ongoing requirement for Thurrock Council to provide a revised business case for the project. At the last meeting, it was agreed that this will be presented to the first board meeting of 23-24. This timeline was based on milestones phase 2 of the project provided by Thurrock Council. Keith's covered that point. Thurrock Council subsequently advised that the phase 2 timeline provided was very ambitious and was perhaps not a particularly robust basis on which to determine a deadline for a business case submission. Whilst Thurrock Council have indicated that further time is needed for development of the business case, a timeline cannot be provided at this time as the project needs to be further developed so that a more robust programme can be established. And I think Keith covered that off quite nicely. A delay in submission of the revised business case is not ideal, but it is important that the business case contains sufficient information to provide the required assurances to the board. With a view to achieving this, a revised timeline for a business case submission will be brought to the board consideration in March 2023, as Keith suggested. In addition to the risks to the delivery programme, there continues to be uncertainty as to the total project costs and whether there is a full funding package in place. It is expected that the update provided at the next meeting will help to mitigate some of these risks. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments or queries from the board on this? No? Okay, thank you, Keith, very much. We're asked to note the update on the delivery of the project and note that a request for the extension to the deadline for consideration of the revised business case for the project will be presented at the March 2023 board meeting. And note that a further update on the delivery of the project will be brought to the March 2023 board meeting and will include an update on the planned delivery programme. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on now to item 12, Bewley Park report. Have we got Gary? Yeah, report. Yes, okay, marvellous. Gary, if I can ask you to give an overview, please.
Hello, so report on Bewley Park Station. I think initially this was coming forward due to issues that we had around network change at one point in time, which was obviously a very high risk, extremely high risk to the project. You cannot build a new station on the main line without network change, which is essentially the planning approval required for the rail network. We had an objector, and it was looking like we were going to go into a lengthy arbitration period, which would have had no real set dates to it. So this project got called out quite rightly as being at high risk from failing to deliver on that basis. Since the report has come forward, or certainly started drafting, the objection was dropped, so we have now received network change, which was a massive hurdle and a necessary hurdle that we needed to clear to build the station. So we are in a much better place. I think I would sort of say personally we're in a very good place in terms of delivering this project. So so where are we at the moment? Well, we're essentially, we've completed all design work, and we are about to go into and enter into the relevant agreements with Network Rail, who can then sign back-to-back agreements with J Murphy and Son Limited, who will start construction work. We're on the brink of actually starting the construction activity. We actually hope to sign the implementation agreement with Network Rail today. We're literally that close. We've just got to get a few things cleared internally with our finance and legal side, but Cabinet gave approval for us to progress into construction in July, and that approval was delegated to one of our directors. So we're working to try and get that across the line today, hopefully, fingers crossed. And as I sit here today, I've got every confidence that we will achieve that. So, as the report outlines, because of the issues we had with network change, we've had to split the construction into two separate agreements. We did this originally to kind of try and limit Essex County Council's exposure, financial exposure. Obviously, once we got network change, we've gone so far down the route of splitting it that we just decided it was more advantageous to and more efficient just to continue on that basis. So we are going to sign what's called an interim implementation agreement, which will cap our costs. Now, within the report, it says 15 million, and that was correct at the time of drafting. Sorry, Howard, but it has changed slightly, and just for full visibility, it is now 50 million that interim implementation agreement will cover. Because of the fact that we've got network change, we've got a little bit more flexibility around going forward. So essentially, that interim agreement covers all upfront, all initial site setup tasks, ordering of items that are on long lead times, and setting up the initial subcontract packages, which the works on site would see us through to March next year, and all the subcontract works probably up until something like December 23. Whilst the interim agreement is ongoing, we will enter into the full implementation agreement, obviously in discussion with our finance and legal colleagues, but the agreements are very, very similar, so there should be no surprises, and that will basically have an agreement in place to see us through to project closeout. In terms of where we are budget and program, the two biggies, we are currently within budget. The cost of the station is 157 million, and our cost plan is currently within that. So we are in budget. Program wise is a little bit more uncertain. If everything goes well and if everything breaks our way, we could have that station open in December 24. We're probably not making that date necessarily public, but an earlier, I understand it's a public meeting, they're public papers, yeah, I understand that. But, you know, with various caveats that, you know, an early 25 date is probably more likely. What else do I need to tell you, really? The risks, yes, I guess the big risks, there are still obviously some massive risks associated with this project. The main one being we haven't had full approval for the possessions that we want. So essentially we want to do most of the on-site work over the Christmas New Year period. Not this Christmas, obviously, following Christmas 23, New Year 24. So anybody traveling on the line at that point in time, you might be blaming us for rail replacement services, but we haven't had them confirmed as yet. We have requested. We do need them, obviously, to keep on the current program. That's a vital part of getting this complete within the program. It would have budget implications if we don't successfully get them. I'm quite confident, as I sit here today, that we will, but it's not been confirmed, so it remains a risk, obviously. And obviously we have, as the report makes clear, we have the link with the Chelmsford North East bypass, because the majority of the money, obviously SELEP are putting in 12 million, the majority of money is coming from the Housing Infrastructure Fund. And we're in a joint contract to deliver two pieces of infrastructure, the station and the North East bypass. There are issues with the bypass, particularly around the budget. There is a slight program issue as well, although that feels more easily resolved. So in theory, we could have, you know, by not delivering both pieces of infrastructure, we could have issues. We remain utterly committed to delivering both, and again, since the paper is drafted, I have to say that we've had a lot of positive discussions with Chelmsford City Council, and I think that we have a way through, and that will allow us to deliver the full scope of the Chelmsford North East bypass and a way of meeting that budget gap. And just again, with apologies to Howard, 4.9 within the paper talks about us seeking permission from Homes England to try and decouple the projects from their current contract arrangement. I think, given how conversations have progressed and our newfound confidence in the ability to deliver the bypass, I suspect that we might not go forward and actually make that request now. But that's a decision that's formally got to be taken. That's certainly something that we're considering at the moment. But yeah, it's certainly all going ahead with the station. You know, it's a station that's required to support the housing developments in Chelmsford, as you can see from the Housing Infrastructure Fund grant. But it also does an awful lot for the Gemmell, the Great Eastern Main Line. There's a passing loop. It'll add resilience to that line. It will allow faster freight trains to overtake slower passenger services. It fully is in line and will help with the target of Norwich in 90 and improving journey times on the Gemmell. And anybody who's travelled in and around Chelmsford will know that we need to do some more to try and keep traffic and out of Chelmsford city centre, and this station will certainly help with all of that. On the basis that we can get into contract, there will be some form of turf cutting ceremony being organised, and obviously we'll be advising SELEP in due course of the dates of that. And as a funder, you'll be your attendance will be required.
Thank you, Gary. Obviously, ever-changing, evolving situation at the moment, but Howard, if you could give a couple of comments, that would be useful. Thank you.
I think Gary's covered most of my points as well.
Okay.
Thank you. I mean, our main concern was around peer funding.
Okay.
That seems to recede somewhat, so thank you for that, Gary. Gary also covered the rail possessions, I think, quite succinctly as well. So I don't think I'll add any more to that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Gary.
Thank you, Gary. Councillor
Chair,
Wagland.
Chair, for those I think who may have been curious, the objection that we received was from Great British Freight. And I'm told that that is a not uncommon situation. And they were persuaded to drop it without the need to arbitrate. But just so we know that it was to describe it as a holding objection, I think would probably be taking a step too far. But it was eminently removable with common sense explanation.
Thank you. Any other comments, queries? No? Okay, thank you very much. So we're asked to note the update on the project, obviously an ongoing update as well, ever changing, and the risks of the project's delivery, which have been identified in all that's been discussed. Note a further update will be brought to the March 2023 board meeting, which will include an update on whether you are going to decouple with PIF and any other status of required rail possessions. So thank you very much, Gary, for that update. Let's move on now to item 13, which is an update on the Queensway Gateway Road project. Richard.
A very good morning, Chair and board members. Can I just ask if you can hear me well? You can see me? Thank you very much. Okay, great. Just to be clear, I'm here representing the County Council to provide an update on progress to the board since it last met on the 23rd of September, only 2 months ago, and cover the latest position on the project, the steps that have been taken, along with covering some of the new risks to delivery. I will not look to cover everything contained within the report, especially the context and the background to the project to date, which is detailed in section 3, and the benefits realisation section 2, as I will take it that you've read the report, but we'll draw out the substantive points and then take any questions if necessary. So fundamentally, the Queensway Gateway Road is a road infrastructure project which will see the A21 connection delivering transport improvements and unlocking allocated employment land. Turning to the update on progress within this report, I'll start with the project budget, which has been highlighted red in the new CELEP reporting template for high-risk projects, covering risks, progress and actions to be taken, which is set out on page 204 of the board pack. With respect to the timeline and the costs for completing the project, funding discussions are ongoing between Sea Change Sussex and East Sussex County Council, and there also remains a dependency tied to the outcome of the road safety audit. As stated within the update report, there does continue to be a number of challenges to completion of the project, and without the relevant technical approvals from National Highways, which is still awaited, the final designs and drawings cannot be produced, and therefore the overall budget and commitments cannot be provided at this time to provide assurances to both parties. Although Sea Change Sussex has expressed the view that the design is not likely to have significant changes. The outcome of the auditor's work is still awaited, so it is not possible to confirm or estimate the timelines for completion at present. As stated in the last update report to the board, the Stage 1 road safety audit highlighted the need for a traffic regulation order for the prohibition of parking in the areas of Whitworth Road, where it will cause a road safety issue. With reference to progress made against the formal advertising of the TRO as stated in the report, this has experienced a slight delay since the September update report to the board. However, I'm pleased to say today that the 3-week consultation is expected to start from the end of next week, so by Friday the 2nd of December, and finish prior to Christmas. Any unresolved objections will then be due to be considered at a planning committee meeting planned currently for the 18th of January 23. Again, I reiterate that it is understood that this will have no impact on overall timeframes, as the TRO only needs to be made by the time the Section 278 works are completed. A final point I would make before turning to next steps is just to reiterate the very helpful points that Sea Change have provided in their own public question earlier today, which you all heard, where they explained to the public that Sea Change Sussex's view is that Sea Change has completed over 500 metres, a half kilometre of the project, with only a relatively small amount of work required to complete the project. In summary, the completion works will involve a junction improvement to the A21 its associated revised curbing, adjacent 3-metre road widening on the west side of the A21 and a cycleway connection. As such, East Sussex County Council will continue to work with Sea Change Sussex to deliver the project. And therefore, turning to the next steps, clearly an update on the project will be provided at the next board meeting, intending to provide clarity on the progress made on the Road Safety Audit 2 addendum, confirmation of the traffic regulation order for the prohibition of parking at Whitworth Road, and of course, clarity on the funding to be applied to the delivery of the project and the timelines. Can I hand back to you, Chair, to...
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. So from a setup perspective, there continue to be a number of concerns regarding the delivery of the project. The primary concern is the ongoing uncertainty regarding the funding package. The funding contribution from Sea Change Sussex continues to be flagged as temporary contingency funding, and no alternative funding sources have been detailed in the report should this funding not be forthcoming. Furthermore, procurement has not yet been undertaken to appoint a contractor to deliver the works to complete the signalised connection, as the required technical approvals have not yet been received. Significant cost increases have been reported across the LGF and GBF programmes, and therefore there are concerns regarding the ongoing affordability of the project. Whilst the report seeks to provide an update on delivery of the project, it has not been possible for East Sussex County Council to provide a clear programme for completion of the signalised connection. This is in part due to the Stage 2 Road Safety Audit Addendum process taking longer than expected, with no clear timeline provided by either National Highways or the auditor, which presents a risk to the overall delivery programme. It is important that future updates on the project provide greater clarity on the total project cost, how the works will be funded, and the delivery programme.
Thank you, Helen. Comments or queries? Councillor Ragland.
Just one, and it's a broader general comment about the signalling. And I just wondered, because we're having problems on a number of our projects and our evaluations of projects at Essex County Council from the highways perspective in relation to signalling. And it occurs to me that it would be good to just understand, and maybe this is a project in which we can see whether there's a general position. But I am a little troubled about what I'm seeing. So whether it's a skill shortage or whether it's contractor shortage, or whether these things get picked up later in a project, which quite often seems to be the case, by which time you haven't got the time to pull it all together in a way that would work. But it seems to me to be just relevant as a very small point behind the scenes. It would be good to know if this is a more general problem.
Thank you, Councillor Ragland. Officers, any comments on that? No. I think it's a good point. So I think it's something we should raise. And you know, we talked earlier on about some of the fact that some of the reports are outstanding. So actually, you know, let's find out whether that is part of the issue, but one of the many issues behind.
I mean, there are a lot of areas, aren't there, Chair, in
exactly.
which we know, as a matter of course, for example, that it will take a while to sort out whether there is or isn't asbestos.
Yep.
Nobody really needs to understand that. But I'm struggling to understand what the problem is with signalling. And as I said, we have a number of these that keep coming into my post bag or otherwise onto my desk. And I think if it's going to be one of those things that we can get a general impression of what's happening, we can probably save ourselves a bit of time.
Thank you. Good point. I'll ask officers to look into that.
Just to add to that, I'm sure there are some commonalities, but there is a specific hold up on Queensway Gateway Road, and much as as we all know, working with National Highways and a third party creates problems that are sometimes out of our control. But we continue to push on.
Thank you. Okay, so we're asked to note the latest update position on the delivery of the project. And we are asked whether you agree that the board will be provided with a further update on the project at its meeting on the 10th of March 2023.
Agreed.
And I'd just like to sort of draw attention to Helen's comment that, you know, the more detail on project costs and programme we could have, Richard, would be really useful. Thank you very much. Okay. Item 14, which is an update on the Grays South Local Growth Fund project.
Good morning.
Kevin this time.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is an update on the Grays South project. The reason why it's before the board today as a separate item is that there have been a number of delays to the programme, and I'll be going through those today in terms of actually those elements, but also outlining what the impact on the reported programme has been forecasted, and then looking at some of the risks and how we're looking to mitigate some of those. In terms of actually the reasons for the report is set out in paras 4.1 to 10. Essentially, one of the key elements that we were looking to progress is the planning application for the new underpass scheme. There was anticipated that application would be considered in September initially. There has been delays to that, primarily around the issue of the treatment of the underpass, primarily as a pedestrian route. But late in the day, there's been issues raised about whether the use of cycles within that. And that's been caught up in issues around with our highways teams and others. Happy to say that those have been resolved now, and the scheme will be subject to further consultation, public consultation. But it has a knock-on impact that the application won't be going to a committee now until February, and that's disappointing because it had a 6 to 7 month impact on the programme. Also, in terms of the detailed engineering design, there has been a delay in terms of actually coming to a contract agreement with Network Rail. That's delayed that design programme. But I'm happy to say that's been signed now, and where that the contract's been let, and the initial meetings have happened, and the design work is in progress. And the final element, it relates to, I'd call it previous optimism bias in terms of the programme. In terms of what's been reported was a scheme without a CPO, a compulsory purchase order requirement. It's clear from my review of the programme that the CPO will be required to bring forward the scheme, and I think that needs to be reflected going forward in any programmes. To put forward a scheme with and without CPO, I think is misleading in the sense of it will be required just to, and that's coming back the back of discussions with the 6 principal landowners in terms of actually what offers have been made, and feedback from our professional advisors is that we're a long way apart in terms of valuations, and I think we need to move forward with the CPO making powers and proceeding with that. The upturn of all of that, those elements, is reflected in the table 1 on page 215. Set out in the table is the previously reported milestones under column 1. An updated assumes no CPO. I would we put that in just to show what the impact would have been. But the real timeline that I'd asked the board to focus on is really column 3, and the key changes there is the requirement for the CPO, and that has a significant impact on the land assembly timeline, which pushes us out from worst case scenario under the previous was November November 22, which is or September 23, back to July 24, and that has a knock-on impact in terms of actually we're not assuming the land is in our possession, then the implementation is in terms of grip 6, which is the implementation, will be delayed accordingly, and that's disappointing in terms of actually that should have been picked up as a real risk earlier on. In terms of actually mitigations, in terms of the next steps, we're confident. Well, not confident. We're the process of actually going through the GRIP 4, which is the outline engineering design, would allow us to actually to address some of the issues around sort of design, budget, buildability, and method of delivery, which we're actually looking to do. As part of, I should add, as part of the the draft recovery and improvement plan that the council is actually is having to undergo as part of remediations from the Essex Commissioners, that we'll be looking at a gateway review of this scheme along with others in the capital programme, and that will allow us to do some scheme reassurance in terms of actually some of the issues that have been raised later in the report under 6.7 around scheme costs, scheme budget, buildability. That will take place in parallel with the GRIP 4 work, which is currently in place and will conclude in February, which would allow us to meet the report recommendation that a report will be brought back to the March Accountability Board with a just pick it up on the last point, and the last item was greater clarity on programme and budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Any comments, Hannahs?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Kevin, and some new information there as well, which is really useful. So I think, look forward to the report in March. I think it will be far more cover far more things. I mean, Kevin's covered the planning application delays. I think that would appear to be under control now. It's good to sort of get an understanding of the CPO as well. I mean, Kevin's right, we have sort of presented programs that have sort of assumed no CPO. I think actually moving into that, actually let's move along with CPO. Of course, that does push the timeline out. I think I'll just refer this extension may have an effect on the value for money. Your members may remember that last May we brought a value for money assessment, and it was recalculated. It was May it came back here, and that showed a BCR of 2 to 1. So that's right on the edge of acceptability as far as the issuance framework is concerned. So we just need to be a bit cautious about that moving forward, and whether a new value for money assessment may be required, but we'll see. There were sizable contingencies, but as I say, we need to be careful. And I think we'll look forward to the report that comes forward in March.
Thank you. Any comments or queries from the board at all? No. Okay, so we're asked to note the latest position on the delivery of the project and steps that will be taken to secure successful delivery, and that we agree that the board will be provided with a further update on the project, which updates the project delivery plan and associated milestones at its meeting in March 2023. Do you agree? Agree. Thank you, Kevin, very much. Okay, let's go on now to an update on the A13 widening and the A28 Surrey Link Road LGF projects. Howard.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. This report provides an update on the delivery of the A13 widening and the A28 Surrey Link Road projects. On the A13, as the board are aware, the A13 is now open to traffic, unless you're going westbound this morning. However, connections for the street lighting at the eastern extent of the scheme require replacement before the remaining speed limit reductions can be removed. At the last meeting, it was indicated that these works have been delayed until late October due to parts not being available and procurement issues. These parts won't be available until mid-January of 2023, so that's a bit of a delay on the completion of the project. The board were advised at the last meeting that non-highway works was complete in autumn 2022. And works to the balancing pool should in fact be completed by the end of this month. Landscape works, however, were delayed due to the abnormally warm weather experienced during the autumn. They couldn't move some of the larger trees, shrubs, because they hadn't gone to sleep apparently. But that will be carried out in December 2022. At the last meeting, the board were advised that an update on project costs had not been received from Thurrock Council. These have now been provided. Costs to the end of Q2 2022-23 are provided in the report, and the total forecast project cost is set out in the confidential appendix, which all members have. Moving on to the A28 Surrey Link Road, since the last update was provided to the board, a requirement to undertake further environmental surveys has been identified. It is expected that these surveys will run from September 2022 to December 2023. Work continues to finalise the award of the design and build contracts. This process has taken longer than expected. but it is anticipated the contract will be awarded in December of 2022. The need for additional environmental surveys and the delay in awarding the design and build contract has resulted in a delay to the delivery programme. It is now expected that construction will commence in April 2024 and will complete in December 2025. The timeline for land acquisition is unaffected by the other changes to the programme, and this work stream remains on track to complete by August 2023 in accordance with the deadline agreed by the board in November 2021. Delivery, both projects are covered there, will continue to be closely monitored, and further updates will be provided to the board. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments or queries from the board?
If I may, just to reiterate the point that Howard mentioned in terms of the key deadline on A28 being that 31st of August one in relation to the land acquisition. So on the other one, we have the environmental surveys, we have the beavers and various other such things, but that one seems to be on track very much, which is what the board agreed when it was transferring that funding to KCC.
Thank you. Okay, so we're asked on the A13 to widening to note the update on the project and note that a further update will be brought to the March 2023 board meeting, and on similar on the A28 Story Link Road, note that the update on the project that we just had and that a further update will be brought to the the first board meeting in 2023-24. So that's slightly different from the other one. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so item 16, which is a update on the Growing Places Fund programme. Helen.
Thank you. So this report provides the usual update on the Growing Places Fund programme, including an update on project delivery and risks which are impacting the programme. The report contains a further update on the Eastbourne Fishermen's Quayside and Infrastructure Development Project. At the last meeting, it was reported that revised repayment schedule was brought forward for board consideration at this meeting. However, as detailed in the report, it has not been possible to bring forward revised repayment schedule due to ongoing discussions between the Eastbourne Fishermen's under 10 metre Community Interest Company and the freeholder of the site on which the building was delivered. These discussions are focused on the terms of the current lease and whether there is any flexibility which would allow the introduction of new income streams which could be used to support loan repayment. Assuming the discussions reach conclusion, it is expected that a more detailed update on the project, the revised repayment mechanism and repayment schedule will be presented to the board in March. The report also provides an update on the Centre for Advanced Engineering project, which was delivered by South Essex College. A revised repayment schedule for the project was agreed by the board in November 2021, and at the time it was agreed that annual updates would be provided to the board. Accordingly, South Essex College have provided an update on their current status and the risks to the repayment of the GPF loan. Whilst the college have reiterated their commitment to repaying the loan, they are facing a number of significant challenges at the moment, as set out in the report. A number of the challenges stem from an ongoing Office for National Statistics exercise to determine if general further education colleges such as South Essex College sit within the public or private sector. There are limited steps that South Essex College can take to stabilise their position until the outcome of this exercise is known. The first repayment on the GPF loan is not due until March 2026, and therefore there is time for these challenges to be addressed before the first repayment is due, but it is important that the situation at the college is actively monitored.
Thank you. Any comments or queries from the board? I have one. Which is if South Essex College don't survive for any reason, the implication is that we would not get our funding back. We would go on to a list of.
Yes, for instance, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Just want you to be very aware of that situation, which would then mean the knock-on impact of that is we can't then recycle that money out to other businesses. Okay, so we are. You have to go, Councillor Chambers. Thank you. We are asked to note the updated position on the GPF programme and note the update on the Centre for Advanced Engineering project and the risk of the agreed repayment schedule, and note the expected proposed revised repayment schedule for the Eastbourne Fishermen's Quayside and Infrastructure development project will now not be forthcoming until the March 2023 Accountability Board meeting, as additional time is required for more work to be undertaken to further develop the proposed revised repayment mechanism and schedule. Okay, thank you. Okay, item 17, finance update. Lorna.
Thank you. So good morning. The finance update provides the latest position on the budget in the current year, and also provides the proposed budget for the 23-24 financial year for approval. So the current year forecast reflects an improvement on the forecast position set out in September of approximately £100,000. This is primarily due to the higher than budgeted interest receipts forecast on the capital balances held by the accountable body on behalf of CELEP, following the recent increases in interest rates. The other main change to the forecast is the proposed appropriation to the operational reserve of the 192,000 of funding that's been released back from the sector support fund following the cancellation of the Build Back Better project, which was discussed at Strategic Board in October. The board will record that the sector support fund has now been closed to new applications, enabling this funding to recycle back to reserves to support the ongoing operations of CELEP. So the overall impact of the improved forecast means that there's a corresponding improvement in the funds expected to be available in the operational reserve to support future operations of, and the balance at the end of the year is expected to be about £1.1 million. So the proposed budget for 23-24 seeks to apply 866,000 of this £1.1 million next year, supplemented by an additional contribution of 179,000 from the other earmark reserves as set out in table 7 in the report. This gives a total of £1,045,000 to support the planned spend in next year. So this has been developed in discussion with Adam, and looking at all expected commitments and known ongoing costs, but makes no assumptions around any future additional funding from government or other parties, including match funding from partners, as there's currently no assurance around any form of core funding or any of the other specific grants to be ongoing into next year at this time. Should this position change, we'll obviously review the budget position and bring a revised position back to the board at a future meeting. So agreeing the budget at this point in advance of other funding confirmations means that Adam can move forward with some assurance in his delivery plan into 23-24 with a baseline funding position. The impact on reserves, as currently proposed, means that there will be a balance of 231,000 in the operational reserve to support activities into 24-25. I'll leave it there, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for all your work, Adam, on getting that submission. Any comments or queries? Councillor Goff.
Are we assuming, I think we are in this, that the fixed term vacancies are filled?
Yes.
Okay, and we're content with that, are we? Does that make sense?
So I'll allow Adam to answer, but the expectation for us is that they proposing to go forward to fill the vacancies that are currently there.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, one relates directly to the support of capital programme activity, which is a sort of one of those areas where we need as we can. So yeah, absolutely.
Any other?
So the other one relates to strategic work around the major projects group. And so we've just got an associated conversation with an existing member of the team around that before we go out to make recruitment, because we might not need to go out to do that particular piece of recruitment. But yeah, it's happily in a stronger position than it might have been overall.
Good. Thank you. I mean, obviously, we would really like to hear from governments that we had investment. We have ongoing commitments in terms of constantly, as you can tell from today's meeting, updating on capital projects and spend, and then also we will still have GPF monies. So it's really important, and as a public meeting, I'd like to make a statement that it would be very good to hear from government about continued investment in project in this kind of work, which I think the partnership that the LEP provides is second to none. So So we asked whether we approve the updated 2023 SELEP revenue forecast budget set out in Table 1, including the specific funds summarised in Table 3. Approve the appropriation of 192,000 of the sector support fund to the operational reserves to support the ongoing operations of SELEP. Approve the revenue budget for 2023-24, set out in Table 6, including the appropriations in reserves as set out in Table 7. And note the ongoing uncertainty from government regarding the future funding position for SELEP beyond 22-23. Okay, so item 18, Adam, I'm handing over to you, which is a report on the operational activities.
Thank you very much, Chair. I don't intend to go into great detail on the content of the paper. I think there's a good update on assurance framework compliance and an update on the risk register, but I do want to highlight just a couple of things that actually correlate a little bit with the conversation that we've just had, and just to provide the board with an update on some key areas of work for us and planning for moving forward. So first thing to say is thank you for approving the budget in the last item. It does give us as a team some security until March 2024, which, as I'll explain in a second, is really welcome. But obviously, from my perspective, in terms of being able to plan a body of work for this coming year, is a much better position than we might have been in, and I'm grateful for that decision and a lot of work and support that we've had from the accountable body in helping us through what's been a difficult sort of thing to manage and balance, really, with the reducing income situation that we've been in. Sort of linked to that is the body of work into next year. There are obviously you'd be well aware of the things that delivers generally, but a few things we want to do, we're now able to do. So one is really put some resource behind making sure that we're able to run a process for the Growing Places Fund that we have back with us. So just shy of £10 million of Growing Places Fund has been paid back. We want to use that. We want to put that to projects in a way that we of course should. The only reason we haven't done that already is purely because of being able to resource it, and linking back to the point I just made to Roger, bringing in more support directly to Helen in respect to the capital programme should enable us to manage that. So that's important to do next year. And then in separate areas of work, we've been particularly strong on some of the regional and kind of local data that we've hold on the state of the economy. We've got strong relationships with the business representative organisations as well. So I think that positions us well to produce a state of the economy type report reflecting the whole area, and actually keep that updated as well, but have it as a resource for all of our partners to really have a full picture on, where we actually are as an economy at the moment, given everything that's going on. So we think that we've got a good opportunity to do that and be a useful tool in terms of making, strong applications for national funding in terms of, supporting projects in this patch. So that's something that we want to do. And another thing to mention is we will be keen to, or we are compelled to support work around transition. So when government released the Lebanon White Paper earlier on this year and wrote to LEP subsequently, it was quite clear that our activity in 23-24 should partly be around supporting whatever local transitions were being made to implement the White Paper and move to devolution solutions locally. Obviously, we recognise that the area is going to be moving at different paces when it comes to that whole agenda, but where people are moving forward and they need that engagement from us, then we want to provide it, because there's 10-12 years worth of learned experience here in how to manage a great big capital programme and do economic development on a large scale. So they're conversations that we will be involved in, we want to be involved in, and we're just about to embark in a workshop with senior officers from one of our areas to discuss exactly that. So that's really positive. The other thing I'll quickly mention is, and it's referenced in the paper, but just to report, that the recruitment panel for the new chair will be making a recommendation to the strategic board in December for the appointment of a new chair. That is ahead of schedule. We were due to do that in February, but we've been able to manage that process well, and the recruitment panel will be putting a recommendation, as I say, to the board in a couple of weeks' time, which is great. It's not that often we can say that we're well ahead of schedule, but hopefully that'll sit really well with the board. And then finally, specifically on the risk register, I just wanted to highlight two of the risks that we have there. So risk number 10 refers to engagement of board members and the attraction of new board members. And I know that we've worked really strongly with federated boards over the years. But one of the things that we'll have a keen eye on over the course of the next few months is actually how we retain good engagement from the private sector in our agenda, recognising that, of course, policy is somewhat moving on. The future of LEPs, generally speaking, is pretty unclear. We think there's a really important body of work to engage with here, as is sort of very clear and demonstrable through conversations like this. But it's evident that it's more difficult to sort of engage people in the way that we have in the past. So that's something that we will continue to work on. And I think linked in with that is the requirement to meet certain requirements from government in respect to making sure we've got the right gender balance on the strategic board, and that we evolve the board in the right way. So that'll require a few changes too. So that's something that will be writ large in our minds over the course of the next few weeks and months to make sure that we get that right, and keep people with us, because we continue to do important job, as Sarah said earlier on. The final thing, just specifically on the viability of the operational budget, I mean, Lorna just very eloquently went through it in terms of what we have planned. Just to be really clear, in respect of next year and the funding and clarity from government, I had it minuted that last week's mid-year review that we had with senior officials, that we need that clarity on funding or otherwise, urgently. And that doesn't just relate to the LEP and its operation, but importantly also the growth hub. What that provides in terms of business support across the patch has been really important. And so to know the government's position on supporting growth hubs is equally as important to us. And it's a point that I very strongly made when I met with officials last week. I just wanted to note that for your benefit too. And then obviously in respect of going beyond March 2024, there's a big question there, as we've just touched on in the previous item. But actually, I think the trust, the relationships, the respect that's been developed between members of the select team and the board and other partners locally over the years has really meant that it's put us in a good position to have really open, constructive conversations about what comes next and how everything feeds into the longer term. So I'm confident that'll push ahead positively. And we're fully engaged in those conversations where local partners want us.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to pay tribute to you and to the staff and to the accountable body for all the work that you're doing. And I just also wanted to say, you mentioned growth hubs, but actually I'd also like to mention skills and the importance of our work on skills as well. And I think in this current economic climate, skills agenda is a constant one that we need to keep an eye on. And then indeed on diversity, I don't think it's just about a government diktat. Absolutely, if we don't have diversity, we have myopathy, and we'll just we need to ensure that we are representative as much as possible of our communities and our people. And I know that some of the challenges sit within the representation in the local authorities in the way that for various reasons things happen, but I think it's an important agenda that I'd like us to still be pushing as hard as possible on. So sorry, that's my standing up and saying a couple of things, but thank you very much. I didn't know whether anybody else has anything else they'd like to add.
No, thank you.
So we're asked to note the update on the assurance framework compliance monitoring government's KPIs at appendices A and B, and note the changes to the risk register at appendix C. Thank you. So the date of the next meeting is the 10th of March 2023. I believe it might be in Southend. So we'll look forward to experiencing the A13 somewhere. Hopefully not badly. I don't believe there is any urgent business and any other urgent exempt business. So thank you all very much for attending and for all of your contributions.
Thank you. Well done. Those 10 minutes.